Hello, my name is Alicia Johnson and I am an SPLD Assessor. What is dyslexia? Dyslexia is often characterised by difficulties in processing written language. Dyslexia can be categorised in terms of biology, cognition and behaviour, all of which is impacted by environment. Research has shown that there are biological differences in the brain structure of people with dyslexia. Our brains are split into the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. The left typically handles aspects of language, analytical thought, logic and mathematics, while the right is responsible for holistic thought, creativity and intuition. We know that in a typically developing brain that the left and right hemisphere of the brain work more or less equally, and in a dyslexic brain there is more emphasis on the right hemisphere and frontal lobe. This means that when reading, rather than going straight to the left hemisphere, the information takes a longer trip through the right hemisphere, which slows down the processing time, which explains a delay in understanding compared to non-dyslexic brains. The physical structure of the brain therefore impacts on cognition. Cognitive tests are included in dyslexia assessments, where we investigate working memory, phonological awareness and processing speed. These areas impact on behaviours seen in the classroom or the workplace, typically in terms of reading fluency, reading comprehension, access to understanding new information, and how this is communicated in spelling and writing. All of this, of course, is impacted by our specific environments, and this is why background information is such a crucial part of dyslexia assessments. Neuroscience tells us that brain plasticity can occur, whereby people can change the structure of their brain by completing repetitive behaviours. This means that dyslexia looks different in each individual depending on whether you engage in any repetitive behaviours, such as music lessons, for example. For dyslexia, we know that engaging in multisensory exercises can change the way written information is processed in the brain, and therefore helps the dyslexic individual to develop fluent reading skills. Dyslexia can often be medicalised in the language we use, where we tend to focus on the negatives. However, there are many positives to having a dyslexic brain, which really is just a differently wired brain. Some positives are that dyslexic people are often creative thinkers and have strengths in problem solving. Dyslexic brains have the capacity to process ideas and to get to conclusions in a different way to their typically developing peers, which can result in some interesting inventions and solutions. For this reason, people with dyslexia might not thrive in a traditional educational environment, which can impact on self-esteem. Therefore, the key to supporting dyslexia is to encourage strengths and find your passion in order to pursue something that you can do well. Dyslexia is lifelong. While dyslexia is often talked about as a childhood difficulty, we know that dyslexia is developmental and does not disappear in adulthood. Research has shown that only 20% of people with dyslexia are diagnosed at school, and therefore 80% of people with dyslexia are adults. This means that we need to provide information and support for adults going through diagnosis just as much as children. Ideally, in the future, most people have their dyslexia recognised as children so that they can better navigate their lives with as much knowledge as possible. But for now, adults need our research and support more than ever. I think dyslexia is a feminist issue. So dyslexia was first recognised in the mid to late 19th century as an unexpected difficulty in children, usually boys, who were otherwise well educated and highly intelligent young people. Now we know that dyslexia can be seen on a continuum, and that social groups outside of middle class boys also experience it. Unfortunately, we have inherited some lingering ideas from the early days of dyslexia. For example, that dyslexia occurs more in boys than girls, not to mention anything of adults. I have heard this said by members of the general public, teachers, as well as established researchers in the field. So I challenge this as an outdated idea that does a disservice to the diverse range of individuals who need our support. I would therefore categorise dyslexia as a feminist issue. I have evidence to support this. For example, the majority of the people I help are women in their mid-20s upwards. Last year, 65% of my clients were women, but there are still educational professionals who are less likely to consider a girl as having a neurodiversity, such as dyslexia, as they believe it is more likely to occur in boys. I have had conversations with a few teachers on this topic. I believe this is a direct result of the early days of dyslexia, where boys were more likely to be found as dyslexic compared to girls, as in those days, boys' education was much more valued than a girl's education. Of course, we have made improvements in this area in the West, but there are still too many girls globally who suffer as a result of gender discrimination, which impacts on their educational opportunities. A really good account to follow on this topic is called More to Her Story, and that's on Instagram, where stories are featured about the education of girls around the world. How can we learn more about dyslexia? There is so much to dyslexia. New research is coming forward every day. Conferences are bursting with new knowledge and ideas of how to better recognise and support dyslexia, from the biological and genetic implications to recognising behaviours and providing the right multisensory strategies. Not to mention the great leaps in AI, which can improve the lives of people with dyslexia. This can all feel overwhelming, even for those of us working in the field. Therefore, I have created an accessible book club to raise awareness of what dyslexia is and how it impacts on people's daily lives. Every month we read books about dyslexia and co-occurring neurodiversities, like ADHD. We know that if you have one diagnosis, it is likely you have traits of other neurodiversities, such as ADHD as well. I have curated a reading list that reflects the lived experiences of people with dyslexia and co-occurring neurodiversities. The book club is aimed at anyone who wants to learn more about dyslexia and neurodiversity in general. I also include information about being an SPLD assessor to hopefully share more about what it is we do, and to inspire others to join us in this incredible field of work and study. I would love to attract more SPLD assessors into the book club, as I have found that reading these stories has enriched my work so much. I have therefore called the book club CPD Friend, as it follows my journey of continued professional development in a friendly way that complements the formal CPD that is required of us as we continue our practice. You can join me for a monthly book club at CPD Friend on Substack. So check out my Instagram, which is at Alicia in the Study, for more updates.